Welcome to Mr. Foy's Easel. Those of you who have been watching the program for a long period of time, you may recall that I started out showing how anybody can draw a cartoon face. If you have these lines right here, the horizontal and the vertical, and I demonstrated how and where you can put the eyes and the nose of your character. Then next steps, of course, involve filling in a few things and maybe adding eyebrows, and you can do a lot of things with the mouth. And of course, using this basic pattern and changing up expressions and various features, you can get a lot of different characters. Well, I'm not going to dwell on this very basic approach today, but I'm going to demonstrate some ways to start out a little bit differently with this crisscross pattern and the features which follow. Take, for instance, here, instead of just drawing circles, you can do something like that. And maybe you know this, maybe not, but this is the way cartoonists often show somebody who's really tired or scared or nervous. Okay, so I'm going to go on, and I'll go ahead and put the ears, but I'll leave most things off for a while. And now this next one is, the nose is in about the same place, but notice the eyes are sort of like triangles. And then there's a number of variations. You can have a nose that is much larger with respect to the eyes. You can see the circles for the eyes are quite small. And then you can raise the horizontal line. Instead of making it approximate in the middle, you can put it like that. And it's going to give you a character whose lower face is going to be much larger than the upper, and that gives you a change of appearance. Now, if you're doing a cartoon circle, you want to make a child's face out of it, you do the opposite. You put a line way down like this, and then you have the nose down real and large eyes like that. Even though I haven't finished it, you can sort of tell that I'm on the way to drawing a cartoon of a child. Next, I want to point out that, getting back to the grown-up characters, that you don't have to have the eye circles going up that much. You can make them really like small slits, which gives quite a different start to the character than you normally have. In the next place, I know you've seen cartoons like this where you don't have the circles at all. Of course, this is getting away from the surefire way of creating a cartoon, but some cartoons, the eyes are just, look like exclamation points in a way. And then, of course, there's also sometimes just little dots like that. So there's a variety of ways to vary your basic circle approach to drawing cartoon faces. Now, let's go back and see if we can't bring out a little bit more personality from these various beginnings. Since this guy right here is got his eyes look like he's really nervous or something, let's just proceed with that idea. And a lot of times in cartoons, if a person is nervous or exhausted, or maybe his mouth will be like that, you know, kind of curvy. That may not happen in real life, but it certainly does in cartoons. And just to add to it, you might, if he's really nervous or maybe actually afraid, might put a little perspiration. And of course, the eyebrows, as I've said many times, can really add meaning to your character's personality or expression.
1 minute.
And now what our triangular guy is, it looks like he's in about the same point of view as the one right here. It's just that the eyes are shaped differently. But even though he looks like he's kind of apprehensive, he may not be. He may be, you know, a little bit put out, as we say, about something. And of course, what I'm doing now and for the rest of this program is showing how you can add to your basic structure and get a variety of personality types, maybe, certainly expressions. Well, after a short break, we'll come back and do some more of this. Well, we're back, and here we have a fellow with the usual big nose, but little bitty eyes. And I may have pointed this out before, I think I did, that in cartoons, a lot of times contrast between big and little, long and short, you know, new and old, that's a device that's used for cartoon humor. So obviously, I'm talking about a big nose and little eyes. And of course, there's a lot of room to improvise and change up the rest of the guy's face. And I've been a little bit chinchy on hair with my first two characters. So this time I'm going to make up for that a little bit. See how just a few strokes of the pen can make a significant change in your funny face. Well, as I said earlier, sometimes instead of having your horizontal lines pretty much in the middle, you put it up higher, and this gives you a different kind of character, one that I guess you could say this is contrast to the upper part of his face, not taking up as much space, thus being in contrast to this lower part. And by the way, on one like this, I like to put the mouth closer to the bottom of the circle. This looks like a tough guy, so I'm going to proceed along those lines. Looks like he's kind of in the same angry frame of mind as the other ones. I'll try to do a cheerier one here in a little bit. Let's give him some whiskers and maybe a a little Band-Aid or a patch on his head, and a little bit of hair. Not the kind of fellow you'd want to tangle with. Now here's our little kid. All right. Put a little turned up nose, perhaps. Smile on his face, little angel that he is. A lot of times in cartoons you want to, these are not whiskers like this guy, these are supposed to be freckles here. And he's got a pleasant, he's actually a little angel. Sometimes in cartoons, someone who's very well behaved or virtuous has a halo over his head. Now the eyes on this next character, as you can see, are quite a bit different from the preceding ones. And he looks really sinister if he's looking out to his left like that. And I'm going to put this kind of eyebrows on him. He's not in a good mood. He looks like he's a little bit ticked off, as we say, but maybe suspicious of something or other. Maybe not suspicious of this little angel, but maybe of this guy over here. And you put the mouth like that shows he just doesn't really trust that guy for some reason. Let's give him a decent haircut. Well, up to this point, all of our characters have eyes that are more or less circular, maybe triangular in one case. This one right here, beginning of, you might say, of getting away from the basic oval for the eye of your character. Some of you may remember or recognize a cartoon character that looks something like this. Actually, a comic strip about this fella is still being published. It's you'll see him, maybe not him, but the one I'm trying to draw in the local comics in the log cabin, Democrat. Now this one right here is just about as basic as the first drawing that I made today. It looks like it sort of looks like one of those smiley faces that you see quite often. But there are a number of comics that utilize this particular approach to the eyes. Of course, if in the case of Beetle Bailey, who's an ongoing comic strip, well, you don't worry about his eyes because he always wears a cap, an army cap right down over his eyes. You don't know if he's asleep or what.
30 seconds.
Okay, I just thought I'd put a little color on some of these faces, but I think that I wanted to give this kid some red hair, or orange hair rather, and for the guys that are really looking mean, maybe you put a little extra red around their eyes. Okay. Well, that's about it for this episode of Mr. Foy's Easel. Remember, you can contact us at conwaycorp.com.